Have you ever received a gift, maybe on your birthday or on Christmas, that you had been waiting for so long? And once you finally got it, you were so excited and you loved it so much. Maybe it was a toy or a game that you played with all the time, and even when you weren't playing with it, you were thinking about it because it's such a great thing. But then a month or two went by and you kind of stopped thinking about it as much. Then a couple more weeks go by and you stopped using it as much as well. Then a few more weeks go by and you see someone who has a better game or a better toy or a better thing, whatever it may be. All of a sudden, you start complaining about that thing that you once loved so much. You wish it was better, like the newer thing that your friend has. For me, it's these things. When I got my first iPhone, I loved it so much for about a year. Then the newer model came out. Then I kind of hated my old phone. There was something newer and better, and I was discontent with what I had. You know, the Israelites felt the same way in our story today. Remember when we talked about the Israelites in the wilderness? When they were hungry, God miraculously provided bread and quail for them. Well, fast forward to our story today, and the Israelites are complaining about this, like I did with my iPhone. They said things like, "This food isn't good enough anymore." In one translation of the Bible, they call what God had been miraculously providing worthless food. Then they started complaining about even being rescued and delivered from Egypt, and they began to speak against God. And when that happened, out came the snakes. As a punishment, many were being bit by the snakes and even died because of the choices they made. A lot of us may think it's a bit silly that they would experience such amazing miracles and still be able to turn against God. But the truth is, this isn't a new thing. We saw this same thing happen in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. They were living the dream. They had everything they needed. The only catch was that they couldn't eat the fruit from one specific tree. In comes another snake. And after a short conversation with that snake, Adam and Eve sinned. They went their own way instead of God's way. Why? Why did they do this? They were discontent. Ultimately, they didn't trust that God knew what was best. They thought there was something better out there for them. Just like the Israelites with the miracle food, and just like me with my iPhone. When Adam and Eve sinned and ate the fruit, spiritually, they died. They were separated from God because of that sin. When the Israelites sinned, they were bit by the snakes and they were dying. They begged Moses to ask God to save them, and once he did, God made a way for them to be saved. God told Moses to make a bronze serpent, kind of like this one, and set it on a pole. Anyone who looked to the bronze serpent would live and not die. So that's exactly what they did. The Israelites looked to the bronze serpent hanging up on that pole, and they were saved. This is actually a beautiful picture of Jesus. Just like that bronze serpent, Jesus was hung up on a cross. And like the Israelites, we were dying because of our sin. The only way for us to be saved is to look to the one hanging up on that cross. For the Israelites, it was the bronze serpent. But for us, it's Jesus. He said it himself in John 14:6. He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Looking to Jesus and choosing to follow him is the only way for us to be saved from our spiritual death. So, like the Israelites, we now have a way to be saved. But even though the Israelites were saved, the discontentment cycle continued. Many more times in the Bible, we see Israel turn from God in search of something better, because they forget where the only true satisfaction comes from. It's a relationship with God. The same is true for us. We may feel discontent at times, but remember, a relationship with Jesus is the only way to receive true, lasting satisfaction. And when we do struggle with thoughts of discontentment, because it will happen, we can trust that Jesus is there to bring us through it. It's like we always say, every day I can trust Jesus. Here's what I want you to see. The Israelites, Adam and Eve, and even us today are all looking for the same thing. We were all discontent. We were all looking for a satisfaction that can only come from one thing, and that is a real relationship with Jesus.